Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. The life of young Caden Richards is almost perfect. He is the star of the school team, and his girlfriend is Lisa, the prettiest girl in class. However, this starts to change on a night of a full moon during a football game. Brad is one of the players on the opposing team who always provokes Caden and doesn't play fair. He finally crosses the line when he knocks the guy down with a strong headbutt and, not satisfied, goes to bother Lisa with jokes mocking her boyfriend. Caden makes an impressive leap and starts beating him with uncontrollable fury, even breaking his helmet. After this incident, Caden's life begins to go off the rails. Besides constant migraines, he starts having horrifying nightmares where his family is attacked by a monster. This quickly begins to affect his performance in school and the principal gives him a lecture. The only person who offers support is Lisa, who says it's all stress from the changes that will come with graduation. Seeing that her words aren't having an effect, she tries to cheer him up in other ways while the full moon shines in the sky. It's then that Caden starts to get too excited and bites her lip. Lisa pulls away in shock and realizes a bizarre transformation is happening. His face looks different, his hands become like paws, and he starts growling at her, furious with the interruption. As Lisa runs away, his body is shaken by strong spasms. Once he recovers, he roams the streets yelling like an animal until he reaches home. Hours later, Caden wakes up on the living room couch with his hands stained with blood. He follows the trail to the bedroom and starts screaming when he sees that his parents have been brutally attacked. Faced with the disgusting scene, his body twists again, and the spasms return. The transformation completes just as Lisa arrives in a patrol car, and the police officer is alarmed by so many signs of violence. Hearing his girlfriend say that he is a monster, Caden decides to escape through the back. During the investigation, all clues point to Caden, but no one can capture him because his keen sense alerts him whenever an enemy is nearby. He spends several months fleeing from authorities and trying to avoid new incidents. His studies about werewolf life reveal that the transformation is inevitable during the full moon, but it does not depend on it to occur. In a restaurant, the TV broadcasts a report about the case, and it's how Caden discovers that he is adopted. He leaves, still processing the information, and then sees two men beating up a girl. Caden transforms to defend her, and the bullies immediately back down. One of them is armed, but the shot only grazes an ear, and the two receive the deserved punishment while the girl escapes. After that, Caden decides to have a beer and ends up meeting another werewolf named Wild Joe. He says there are many more around the world, but few are purebred like the two of them. Most are mixed breeds, meaning someone who became a werewolf after being bitten. Joe says Caden's biological parents must be from an eastern pack but warns that these wolves are fierce and recounts how he himself lost an eye. Ignoring the warnings, the young man insists on finding out more, annoying Joe. He responds with a punch before firing his last dart and disappearing from the bar. As soon as Caden realizes where the dart landed, he hops on his bike and heads to Lupine Ridge. Upon arrival, he sees that the town is very small and isolated in the mountains. The owner of the local bar is the young angel, who seems to feel an instant connection with the visitor, unlike the clientele, who receive him with distrust. Among them is a strong man named Connor. He sends a woman to invite Caden to dance, but he declines the blonde's offer. Giving a false name, he tries to talk to Angel, but she sees Connor watching and prefers to step away. Then a guy named Deke arrives, claiming to be the blonde's boyfriend, and accuses Caden of harassing her. Trying to avoid a fight, Angel threatens to kick Deke out of the bar, but several others start to support him. Outnumbered, Caden decides to leave but waits in hiding until Deke comes out. When he approaches him, Deke shows his fangs to intimidate the outsider, but Caden is a clearly superior and more powerful werewolf. Deke panics and wets his pants before running away. Then Caden sees that one of the bar patrons is waiting for him. His name is John Tollerman, and he needs someone to help him with his farm. Accepting the offer, Caden begins to work for John and his wife Clara. Everything goes well for a few days until Connor shows up, wanting to know what happened to Deke. He finds it strange that his partner ran away from a fight with some random kid. John says Caden is a distant nephew and does his best to calm Connor down until he convinces him to leave. The next day, Caden wakes up nervously and is ashamed to see that he attacked a sheep during the night. After dinner, Caden is watching TV with the Tollermans when a news report about his escape starts. He practically jumps for the remote and turns off the device, without much discretion. To avoid explanations, he decides to go to Angel's. It is there that he meets Carter Wills, who claims to be his second cousin. He calls Caden by his real name and says his brother was expelled from Lupine Ridge by Connor, who is a cruel tyrant. He also says that Caden needs to leave because his presence is putting everyone at risk. Before he can explain further, Connor appears on the porch with a threatening demeanor, and Carter ends the conversation. Caden goes into the bar and finally manages to talk a little with Angel. She introduces the other waitress as her sister, Gail. The two inherited the bar after their parents died, and that's the only reason Gail doesn't lose her job, despite her drinking more than the patrons. Meanwhile, Connor is in the woods waiting for his henchmen. They arrive bringing Carter Wills, who is terrified. Trying to explain himself, he says he sent Caden away because he saw him flirting with Angel and knows she belongs to Connor. The pack leader is not easily convinced by this excuse. He senses that there is something about the outsider that no one has told him. Then he asks if this has anything to do with Wild Joe, who we now find out is Carter's brother, and he says no. Then Connor grabs his neck before clarifying the problem. He doesn't know which lineage Caden belongs to. And since he intends to slaughter him soon, this could look bad in the community. Carter manages to convince him that he knows nothing, but that doesn't help him much. To prevent Caden from being alerted, Connor sends the entire pack after Carter, who flees through the woods in despair. The hunt begins, and it doesn't take long for the ruckus to reach Caden's ears. He decides to enter the woods to find out what is happening, and to his surprise, the first person he encounters is Angel. She says someone was attacked and lets Caden accompany her while they investigate who it was, but only if he promises to be quiet. From a distance, the two watch the group of werewolves partying. They are all semi-transformed and playing rough games. Caden is horrified when Angel explains that the barbecue was once Carter Wills. Connor is the only one fully in werewolf form, and so he begins to sniff out the intruders. Angel is distressed and says they need to get out of there. Then the two go to the farm and find the Tollermans watching a documentary about the murder of Caden's parents. He can hardly believe it when Clara hugs him and says she is very sorry about what happened. John decides it's time for a talk and reveals that he is also a werewolf, just like Angel and Gail. There are not many pure bloods left nowadays, but Connor is one of them. Caden's mother, who is actually John's niece, was also one. Connor fell in love with her and took her by force. When her father found out about the pregnancy and threatened to kill her, John decided to save her with Clara's help. After forging her death, they kept her hidden in the basement until Caden was born. Forced to give the baby up for adoption, she could not bear the pain and ended up taking her own life shortly after. Since then, Connor's behavior only worsened. He organized a pack of thugs and now spends most of his time with them in the highest hills, losing contact with humans more and more. Caden is outraged to learn that that monster is his father. But that's not even the worst part. Now that he is getting old, Connor is obsessed with continuing the lineage and intends to impregnate Angel very soon. Talking alone with Caden, she explains that she has no choice. If she runs away, Connor will take out his anger on Gail or the Tollermans. Therefore, the only way to protect them is to give him what he wants. Despite understanding, Caden still cannot come to terms with the injustice. Angel says he never should have gone to Lupine Ridge because he has a good heart. Upon hearing this, he gets emotional and starts talking about the death of his parents. Angel tells him that her father was an alcoholic and lost control on a night of a full moon, attacking her mother. When he returned to normal and saw what he had done, he decided to accompany his wife. But despite the regret, Angel says that cruelty was always within her father, and she doesn't see that in Caden. So far, he has only lived the tragic side of his nature, and Angel decides to show that there is also a good part. Running out in the open, she encourages him to embrace his incredible reflexes and experience all the power of the wolf within. The two reach the barn and start kissing, but Caden fears that this will trigger the transformation. Angel reminds him that she doesn't need to fear his claws because she has her own. He accepts the argument with little resistance and begins to enjoy the company of his father's fiancée. A little while later, John enters the barn, speaking loudly to avoid embarrassment. Caden is in a great mood when he responds. Shyly, Angel asks if Clara can lend her a shirt because hers tore. That night, John hosts a meeting at home. Among those present are Mayor Robinson and a man named Larson Wills, who is Carter and Wild Joe's brother. The two detest the idea of facing Connor and think this whole mess is Caden's fault. The deal among the packs is to deliver Angel in exchange for peace. John argues that not even Connor respects this deal since his wolves constantly cause tragedies in the village. Caden interrupts the discussion to say that they should stay home and lock the doors tonight. He says he will put an end to it, even if he doesn't survive. Angel and John are very worried to hear this, but there is nothing they can do to stop him. At the top of the hill, the werewolves are planning a way to get rid of Caden when he simply appears at the entrance. Connor is stunned by the boy's audacity, who insults the den and calls them all furry lunatics. He then tells the truth about Lucinda and reveals that he is her son. The name of his beloved deeply affects Connor, but the discovery of their kinship doesn't make much difference. When Caden demands that the pack leave Lupine Ridge and leave Angel alone, Connor releases the pack to chase him, just as he did with Carter. Then Caden lures them into the densest part of the woods and begins attacking them one by one. The strategy works until the rest of the pack bands together against him. Angel manages to hear their howls from the farm and decides to run there, ignoring John's warnings. Connor lifts Caden by the neck and calls him a punk. He retaliates with a scratch on the face and calls Connor an animal. The pack chases him until they reach a cliff, where Caden realizes he is cornered. When the wolves start advancing, he decides to jump. From above, the pack doesn't see that the trees cushion his fall, bringing the hunt to an end. Caden's state is pitiable, and he begins to suffer from delusions where the memory of his perfect life merges with recent horrors. It is then that Wild Joe appears to help him up and carries him near the farm, where he falls into Angel's arms. He wakes up the next day, still weak, and says he needs to go to a hospital or even a veterinarian. John says that is not what he needs. The wolf is much stronger than the man, and he will heal quickly once he transforms. But Caden still doesn't know how to trigger the metamorphosis and lacks the strength to run outside. Knowing there is another way to initiate the process, John gives a sly look to Angel and leaves the room with his wife. With the first kiss, his broken bones begin to adjust and he soon regains some of his strength. After this unconventional treatment, Angel carries him outside and insists that he needs to run. The first steps are very difficult, but the pain itself helps awaken the wolf. The walk becomes increasingly easier until it turns into a restorative run. Caden is fully healed when he has an interesting yet disgusting idea. John maintains a modest laboratory on his farm, where he turns sheep dung into fertilizer. The bacteria from the smelly compost make the substance extremely explosive. While the Tollermans help the young couple put the plan into action, Connor's wolves are still suffering from the fight the previous night. Without much finesse or patience, he also orders them to run to force the transformation, speeding up their healing process. But he forgets that his henchmen are second-class wolves and this does not work for them. Angel tells Caden that she wants to accompany him, but he doesn't want to hear about it. If something happens to her, all of this will have been for nothing. He tells her to pack her bags and stay in a roadside motel waiting for him. Then the two will be free to get out of there and start a new life. However, that is not what happens. She is still packing when Connor invades the farm. Caden runs as soon as he hears the scream, breaking down the door with another phenomenal leap. Even so, it is too late, and all he finds is a sarcastic invitation to Connor and Angel's mating. Clara and John have also been kidnapped, and now they are in a cage with Gail. She says no one did anything when the thugs took her from the bar, and John concludes that they were betrayed by Larson and Robinson. Coming to the cage, Connor tries to find out where Caden is and if he is truly his son. John says he is dead, but confirms the kinship, which provokes the alpha wolf's wrath. He says that John had the audacity to lie to him for nearly 2 decades and that will not go unpunished. But the threats are interrupted by the wedding march, and Connor remembers that today is a day for celebration. The werewolves arrive carrying Angel, who is drugged and tied up. Connor tells her that all of this will end before midnight, and she will have the honor of bearing his successor. Meanwhile, two werewolves from the pack are complaining about missing the party to stand guard. Caden attacks one of them so quickly that the other doesn't even understand what happened before succumbing as well. The ceremony begins, and Connor acts as if it were an engagement party with the chosen one's consent. Angel makes a point of correcting him with a perfect spit, but the groom remains unfazed and just warns the guests that the couple will be back in 20 minutes. When he begins to untie Angel, Caden's voice interrupts the ruckus with a series of accusations and threats. Connor starts to transform as soon as he sees him, and the rest of the pack follows suit. He lures the wolves to the farm while Angel transforms as well. She takes out Deke and another henchman before opening the cage and freeing her friends. John transforms for the first time in many years, allowing him to reach the farm before the pack and grab the rifle that was already prepared for this moment. But when the enemies arrive, he doesn't pull the trigger. Caden is on the roof distracting the pack until everyone is in a specific area. Only then does John start shooting the explosives that the two buried there earlier. The werewolves rush in and quickly regret doing so because John hits the strategically placed explosives and sends the barn sky-high with a sigh of sadness. The only one who survives is Connor, and he attacks Caden as soon as he manages to get out. The two fight evenly until Caden's youth begins to prevail. He is almost defeated when John aims for his head, but Caden begs him not to shoot, as this is his last chance to talk to his father. Connor returns to human form and says he never attacked Lucinda. The two are in love, but her father did not take the pregnancy well, so he decided to take the blame. After losing Lucinda, Connor became the monster they always accused him of being. It is then that a disrespectful laugh ruins the moment between father and son. Wild Joe is sitting on the roof laughing at Connor's defeat. As the two begin to argue, Caden discovers that Connor expelled Wild Joe for being too violent. But since the Wills family has always been close to the Tollermans, Joe knew their secret and used Caden to get revenge. He gets so excited with his victory that he lets slip a few things he shouldn't have, like the fact that he killed Caden's parents to get the boy to Lupine Ridge. Furious upon hearing this, Caden tries to attack him, but Joe knocks him down with a kick, confident that his two enemies are now too tired to face him. Connor then realizes this is a good time to inform him that he dined on his younger brother 2 days ago. Joe buries his claws in his neck, and the King of Wolves is finally dethroned. John begins shooting when Joe attacks the boy. Seeing a strong wolf ally of Caden approaching, Joe tries to limp away, but the young man won't let him get away unpunished, so he quickly catches up to him. He starts using his words to convince him that the real villain is Connor. Caden pretends to listen to him while John carefully begins to move away, realizing what the boy is planning. He takes the cigarette from Joe's mouth and throws it on the ground, right on top of the explosives. Joe doesn't notice and continues talking until he notices that Caden is also moving away. At this point, he only has time to curse before the explosion shatters him. The next day, Caden and Angel wake up together on the farm. Making use of his work, John disposes of the bodies while fertilizing the crops at the same time. He is sad to know that the couple is already leaving, but Angel says she can't take this town anymore. As a parting gift, he gives Caden a rare document containing the family tree of the main werewolf lineages, so that the two can keep an eye out in case they encounter another pack out there.